I watched a 62-year-old man walk into a room and leave with a woman half his age. He was not rich. He drove a 10-year-old car. His watch cost less than dinner. He wore no designer labels. Nothing about his appearance screamed wealth or status. But something about him made every woman in that room turn her head. Something made conversations pause when he spoke. Something made the most beautiful woman there choose him over every younger, wealthier, more conventionally attractive man present. I spent the next 3 years studying men like him. Not celebrities, not billionaires. Ordinary older men who possessed something extraordinary. Something that made women pursue them instead of the reverse. What I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about attraction. It was not money. I met broke older men who were magnetic and wealthy older men who were invisible. It was not looks. I met average-looking older men who had women fighting for their attention. It was not status. I met high-status older men who could not get a second date. What separated the desired from the ignored was something far more subtle. Something Niccolo Machiavelli identified 500 years ago when he wrote about the qualities that make men compelling to others. Machiavelli wrote that there is nothing more difficult to plan, more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to manage than the creation of a new system. The older men women truly desire have created a new system, a new internal operating system that most men never develop. Today I am going to show you exactly what that system looks like. Not theory, not philosophy. The specific qualities that make older men irresistible and the specific patterns that make them invisible. Before we go deeper, I need to address something directly. This video is not about tricks to manipulate younger women. This is not about pretending to be something you are not. This is not about performing confidence you do not possess. This video is about becoming the type of man who naturally attracts women through genuine internal development. The type of man who does not chase because he does not need to. The type of man whose presence alone creates desire. Machiavelli understood something about human nature that most people still miss today. He wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Most men spend their lives perfecting appearances while neglecting reality. They buy expensive clothes but carry cheap energy. They drive luxury cars but radiate insecurity. They accumulate status symbols but possess no substance beneath them. Women see through this instantly, especially mature women. Especially women who have experienced enough hollow men to recognize the difference between performance and truth. The older man women actually want has stopped performing. He has done the internal work that makes external performance unnecessary. His attraction is not manufactured. It is the natural consequence of who he has become. Robert Greene expanded on Machiavelli's ideas in his study of power and seduction. He observed that the greatest seducers throughout history shared one quality. They had developed a deep understanding of human psychology, starting with their own. This is the foundation we will build today. Not tactics, understanding, not tricks, transformation, not performance, presence. I have identified 4 pillars that separate the desired older man from the invisible one. These are not opinions. These are patterns I observed consistently across hundreds of interactions. Pillar 1 is integrated darkness. The man who has faced his shadow and made peace with it. Pillar 2 is cultivated stillness. The man who has mastered his emotional reactions. Pillar 3 is earned authority. The man who leads without demanding to lead. Pillar 4 is strategic vulnerability. The man who reveals himself intentionally. Each pillar builds on the previous. You cannot cultivate stillness without first integrating your darkness. You cannot earn authority without emotional mastery. You cannot be strategically vulnerable without first establishing strength. Most men never develop even one of these pillars. They age without evolving. They accumulate years without accumulating wisdom. They grow older while remaining psychologically adolescent. Machiavelli wrote that the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. I would add that the first method for estimating the development of a man is to look at how women respond to his presence. Not what they say, how they feel in his company. Women are exquisitely tuned to masculine energy. Evolution made them that way. Their survival once depended on accurately assessing which men were trustworthy and which were dangerous, which men had genuine strength and which were pretending. This assessment happens below conscious awareness. She does not decide to feel attracted or repelled. She simply feels it. And what she feels is determined by which of these four pillars you have developed. Over the next few minutes, I will break down each pillar completely. What it looks like, how to develop it, and why women respond to it so powerfully. Stay with me. This is the knowledge most men will never access. Pillar 1. Integrated darkness. Let me tell you about a man named David. David was 54 when I met him. A carpenter. Hands rough from decades of work. Nothing impressive about his bank account. Nothing remarkable about his appearance. Gray hair, weathered face, simple clothes. But women were drawn to him in ways I could not initially understand. I watched him at a dinner party once. A woman in her 30s spent the entire evening gravitating toward him. Not because he pursued her. He barely spoke to her directly. But something about his energy pulled her in. Later, I asked him what his secret was. He laughed and said something I will never forget. I stopped pretending I was only made of light. It took me months to understand what he meant. Carl Jung wrote extensively about what he called the shadow. The parts of ourselves we reject, deny, and hide from the world. Our anger, our selfishness, our lust, our capacity for cruelty, our petty jealousies and dark impulses. Most men spend their entire lives running from their shadow. They pretend these parts do not exist. They build elaborate personas designed to hide anything that might be judged as unacceptable. But Jung understood something profound. He wrote that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The man who denies his shadow does not eliminate it, he simply loses control of it. This is why so many seemingly nice men suddenly explode in rage. Why respectable men get caught in scandals that destroy their lives. Why men who project perfect images often harbor the darkest secrets. The shadow does not disappear when ignored. It grows stronger in the darkness. It leaks out in uncontrolled ways. It sabotages the very image the man is trying to protect. David had done something different. He had faced his shadow directly. He knew his capacity for selfishness. He acknowledged his anger. He accepted his darker impulses without being controlled by them. And this integration changed everything about his presence. Women sensed it immediately, not because he was dark or dangerous, but because he was complete, whole, not at war with himself. Machiavelli understood this centuries before Jung gave it a name. He wrote that a man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good. This is not a call to become evil. It is a recognition that human nature contains both light and darkness. The man who pretends otherwise is lying, and women can feel that lie even when they cannot name it. Let me explain why integrated darkness is so attractive to women. When a man has not faced his shadow, he is unconsciously afraid of himself. He does not trust his own impulses. He is constantly monitoring, suppressing, controlling. This creates a subtle tension in his body, his voice, his energy. Women feel this tension. It registers as inauthenticity, as something hidden, as potential danger that could emerge without warning. Sigmund Freud built his entire theory of psychology around the idea of repression. He observed that what we push down does not disappear. It festers, it creates anxiety, neurosis, and unpredictable behavior. The man with unintegrated shadow is unpredictable in the worst way. He might seem calm and controlled, but she senses the pressure building beneath the surface. She does not know which version of him will appear when stress arrives. But the man who has integrated his darkness is predictable in the best way. He knows himself completely. He has made peace with his full nature. There are no hidden rooms in his psyche that might burst open unexpectedly. Robert Greene wrote about this in his analysis of power. He noted that people who display weakness or vulnerability strategically are often more trusted than those who project constant strength. Because constant strength feels like performance, and performance always hides something. The integrated man can acknowledge his darker impulses without shame. He can admit to selfish thoughts without being consumed by them. He can discuss his past mistakes without defensive justification. This completeness is deeply attractive, because it signals that he has done the hardest work a man can do. He has faced himself honestly. And he survived. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote that whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. The integrated older man has gazed into his abyss. He has seen what lives there, and instead of being destroyed by it, he has made it part of his wholeness. Now let me show you what this looks like in practice. I met a woman once who described her attraction to an older man she was seeing. She said something that perfectly captures integrated darkness. He does not pretend to be a saint. He knows exactly who he is, including the parts that are not pretty. And somehow that makes me trust him more than any man who tried to convince me he was perfect. This is the paradox. The man who admits his flaws becomes more trustworthy than the man who hides them. Because hiding requires lying. And women are experts at detecting lies. So how do you integrate your darkness? First, you must acknowledge it exists. This sounds simple, but most men cannot do it. They have spent so long identifying with their good qualities that admitting the bad ones feels like self-destruction. Sit with yourself in silence. Ask yourself what you are most afraid others will discover about you. What thoughts do you have that you would never speak aloud? What impulses do you suppress because they do not fit your self-image? This is your shadow material. It is not going anywhere. The only question is whether you will own it or it will own you. Second, you must accept without acting. Integration does not mean expressing every dark impulse. It means acknowledging the impulse without being controlled by it. You can recognize your capacity for cruelty while choosing kindness. You can acknowledge selfish desires while acting generously. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. In his private journals, he wrote about his struggles with anger, pride, and pettiness. He did not pretend these did not exist. He named them clearly, and in naming them, he gained power over them. Third, you must stop performing goodness. The integrated man does not need to prove he is good. He knows his full nature. He acts well because he chooses to, not because he is desperately trying to hide something. This shift is visible. It changes how you carry yourself. It eliminates the subtle tension of performance. It allows you to be fully present because you are no longer dividing your attention between being and pretending. David the carpenter had done this work. When I spent time with him, I felt the absence of performance. He was simply himself, complete, undefended, real. And that reality was more attractive than any polished image could ever be. Pillar 2. Cultivated Stillness. I once witnessed something that taught me more about attraction than any book ever could. A man in his late 50s was sitting at a bar, well-dressed but not flashy, calm face, relaxed posture. He was alone, drinking slowly, watching the room without scanning it. A younger man, maybe 28, approached the same bar. Good-looking, fit, expensive clothes. He ordered a drink and immediately began fidgeting, checking his phone, adjusting his hair, looking around to see who was looking at him. A woman walked in. Beautiful, the kind of woman who stops conversations. She sat between them. The younger man sprang into action. He leaned toward her. He started talking. He laughed too loud at his own jokes. He asked questions but barely listened to the answers. His energy was a constant broadcast. Look at me. Notice me. Want me. The older man did nothing. He glanced at her once, a small acknowledging nod. Then he returned to his drink. His stillness was complete. No fidgeting, no performance, no desperate energy leaking from every pore. Within 20 minutes, she had turned her back to the younger man and was facing the older one. He had spoken perhaps 10 words total, but those 10 words landed with weight because they emerged from silence. By the end of the night, she left with him. I later learned he was not wealthy. He was a retired teacher living on a modest pension. But he possessed something that money cannot buy and youth rarely develops: cultivated stillness. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must imitate the fox and the lion. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Most men understand the lion: strength, dominance, aggression, but few understand the fox: patience, observation, the ability to be still while others exhaust themselves. The older man at the bar was the fox. He did not need to dominate the room. He simply watched, waited, let others reveal themselves through their frantic activity, while he revealed nothing but calm solidity. Let me explain the psychology behind why stillness is so powerfully attractive. We live in an age of constant noise. Everyone is broadcasting, everyone is performing, everyone is desperate to capture attention in a world with infinite distractions. This desperation is visible. It lives in restless eyes, in bodies that cannot be comfortable, in conversations that feel like competitions, in energy that demands rather than invites. Women are exhausted by this energy. Every day they encounter men who want something from them, men whose attention feels like a transaction, men who radiate need disguised as interest. Then they encounter a man who wants nothing, a man whose stillness says, "I am complete without your validation," a man whose calm suggests an internal world so rich that external approval is unnecessary. This is magnetic because it is rare. And rarity, as Robert Greene observed, is the foundation of desire. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote about the nature of desire and satisfaction. He observed that most people oscillate between wanting and boredom. They chase something desperately, obtain it, and immediately begin wanting something else. The still man has escaped this cycle. His stillness signals that he has found something most people never find: internal satisfaction, a relationship with himself that does not require constant external feeding. Carl Jung described this as the man who has achieved a measure of individuation, who has become himself fully rather than remaining a collection of reactions to external circumstances. Women sense this completeness. It creates a specific feeling in their nervous system: safety. Because a man who does not need anything from them will not take anything from them. He will not drain them. He will not cling. He will not transform into someone desperate the moment they show interest. Epictetus taught that we cannot control external events, only our responses to them. The still man has mastered his responses. He does not react to every stimulus. He chooses his engagements deliberately. This choice is felt as power, not aggressive power, not dominating power, the quiet power of a man who is captain of his own soul. Now let me show you how to develop cultivated stillness. First, you must understand that stillness is not passivity. The still man is not withdrawn or disconnected. He is fully present. But his presence does not leak out through nervous energy. It is contained, concentrated, dense. Thomas Hobbes wrote that the reputation of power is power. Your stillness communicates reputation before you speak a single word. It announces that you have faced enough chaos to no longer be disturbed by it, that you have weathered enough storms to remain calm when others panic. Here is the first practice. Learn to be comfortable in silence. Most men fear silence. When conversation pauses, they rush to fill the void. They ramble. They make jokes. They do anything to escape the discomfort of empty space. But silence is where power lives. The man who can hold silence without discomfort demonstrates that he does not need external stimulation to feel okay. He can simply exist, present, untroubled. Practice this. In your next conversation, let pauses exist without filling them. Feel the discomfort. Stay with it. Watch how others rush to fill the space you have created. This is your first taste of stillness as power. Here is the second practice. Slow everything down. Fast movement signals anxiety. Rushed speech signals desperation. Quick reactions signal that you are controlled by external events rather than internal choice. Move slower. Speak slower. Pause before responding to questions. Take a breath before reacting to anything. Marcus Aurelius practiced this deliberately. He wrote about creating a space between stimulus and response. In that space lives your freedom. In that space lives your power. Here is the third practice. Stop scanning. Insecure men constantly scan their environment. Their eyes dart. They check who is watching them. They monitor for threats and opportunities obsessively. The still man looks where he chooses to look. His gaze moves deliberately, not reactively. When he looks at someone, he looks fully. When he looks away completely. Practice soft eyes. Take in the whole room without fixating. Stop the constant surveillance that broadcasts your insecurity to everyone present. I remember asking the retired teacher how he developed such complete stillness. He told me something simple. I spent years chasing women, chasing approval, chasing success. One day I realized the chasing was the problem. So I stopped, and I discovered that when you stop chasing, what you want often walks toward you. This is the paradox of cultivated stillness. By wanting less visibly, you become more desirable. By needing less obviously, you attract more naturally. The woman at the bar was not drawn to his inaction. She was drawn to what his stillness represented. A man at peace with himself. A man who did not need her to feel complete. A man whose calm suggested depths worth exploring. That is the power of the second pillar. Stillness that speaks louder than any words ever could. Pillar 3. Earned authority. Let me tell you about the most powerful moment I ever witnessed between a man and a woman. A couple in their 40s was having dinner at a restaurant where I was seated nearby. They were clearly in a relationship, comfortable with each other, easy conversation. Then the waiter brought the wrong order. The woman began to get frustrated. Her voice rose slightly. She was about to make a scene. The man placed his hand gently on hers. He did not speak immediately. He just looked at her with calm certainty. Then he said 4 words. "I will handle this." Her entire body changed. Her shoulders dropped. Her jaw relaxed. The frustration dissolved. She leaned back and let him manage the situation. He spoke to the waiter quietly. No aggression. No demands. Just clear, calm direction. The problem was solved in 2 minutes. But what stayed with me was her face during those 2 minutes. She was looking at him like he was the only man in the room, like he had just done something heroic. All he did was handle a minor restaurant mistake. That is earned authority, not demanded, not performed, demonstrated through action in moments that matter. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the nature of authority. He observed that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But he also wrote something less quoted. The best fortress is to be found in the love of the people. Most men misunderstand authority. They think it means dominance, aggression, controlling others through force or intimidation. But earned authority is different. It is the natural result of demonstrated competence over time. It is leadership that others choose to follow, because following makes sense. Robert Greene identified this as one of the fundamental laws of power. He wrote that you must get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. I would modify this for relationships. You must do the work that matters, and let the results speak for themselves. The man at the restaurant had earned his authority, not through that single moment, through thousands of moments before it. His partner knew from experience that when he said he would handle something, it would be handled. Her trust was not given freely. It was earned through consistent demonstration. This is what separates older men who attract from older men who repel. The attractive ones have accumulated evidence. They have proven themselves through action so many times that their authority is unquestioned. Jordan Peterson speaks about this as competence hierarchies. In any domain, those who demonstrate competence rise naturally. Others defer to them not through force, but through recognition of genuine ability. Women are instinctively drawn to men who sit high in competence hierarchies, not because they want to be dominated, because competence signals survival value. It signals that this man can navigate the world effectively, that being with him increases safety rather than risk. How do you develop earned authority? First, you must become genuinely competent at something, not pretend competence. Real skill developed through years of practice. It almost does not matter what the domain is. Mastery in any area creates a confidence that transfers to all areas. Second, you must demonstrate this competence consistently, not through bragging, through action. When problems arise, you solve them. When decisions are needed, you make them. When leadership is required, you provide it. Third, you must accept responsibility for outcomes. The man with earned authority does not blame others when things go wrong. He owns the result. This ownership is attractive because it is rare. Most people spend their lives avoiding responsibility. The man who embraces it stands apart. Nietzsche wrote about the will to power as the fundamental drive of human nature. But he did not mean power over others. He meant power over oneself. The authority to govern your own life completely. The man at the restaurant had this power, and his partner responded to it instinctively. Not because she was weak, because she recognized strength worth trusting. Pillar 4. Strategic vulnerability. This pillar confuses most men. They hear vulnerability and think weakness. They imagine crying, confessing fears, exposing every insecurity. That is not strategic vulnerability. That is emotional dumping, and it destroys attraction instantly. Strategic vulnerability is something far more sophisticated. It is the deliberate revelation of humanity from a position of strength. It is showing that you are real without showing that you are weak. Let me explain with a story. I knew an older man who had built a successful business over 30 years. Tough exterior, commanding presence, the kind of man who seemed invulnerable. One evening, I watched him with a woman he was pursuing. They had been talking for an hour. He had demonstrated all the qualities we have discussed: integrated darkness, cultivated stillness, earned authority. Then she asked about his marriage. He had been divorced for 8 years. Most men would either deflect or over-explain. They would either hide the wound or bleed all over the table. He did neither. He paused, looked at her directly, and said this: "I failed at the most important commitment of my life. I was not the husband she needed. It took me years to understand my part in it. That failure taught me more about myself than any success ever did." Then he was silent. He did not elaborate. He did not justify. He did not seek her sympathy. He simply stated a truth about himself and let it exist. Her entire demeanor changed. She moved closer. Her voice softened. She began sharing her own failures with him. That is strategic vulnerability. The revelation of genuine humanity without the abandonment of masculine frame. Sigmund Freud understood that human beings crave authenticity in others. We are surrounded by performance, everyone curating their image, everyone hiding their failures. When we encounter someone willing to be real, we are drawn toward them like water toward gravity. But Machiavelli would add a crucial warning. He wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. Appearance matters. Context matters. Vulnerability shown too early appears as weakness. Vulnerability shown from strength appears as depth. The sequence matters enormously. You must first establish strength through the other 3 pillars. Only then can vulnerability be revealed without cost. Only then does it add to your attractiveness, rather than subtract from it. Carl Jung wrote about this as the integration of the anima, the feminine element within the masculine psyche. The man who has integrated his anima can access emotional depth without losing masculine solidity. He can be tender without being soft, open without being exposed. Here is how you practice strategic vulnerability. First, know your wounds before you share them. If you have not processed a pain fully, sharing it will feel like bleeding rather than revealing. Do the internal work first. Understand what your failures taught you. Find the wisdom in your wounds. Second, share from resolution, not confusion. The divorced man did not say, "I do not know what went wrong." He said, "It took me years to understand my part." He had done the work. His vulnerability came from clarity, not chaos. Third, reveal without drowning. Strategic vulnerability is a moment, not a flood. You share one truth. You let it land. You do not pile confession upon confession until she becomes your therapist. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote that we forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. The strategically vulnerable man has reclaimed himself fully. He knows his darkness. He sits in stillness. He has earned authority. And now he can reveal his humanity without fear. This combination is irresistible to women, because it represents something vanishingly rare: a complete man. A man who has done the work most men avoid for their entire lives. The older man women truly want is not playing a role. He has become something real. And reality, in a world of endless performance, is the most seductive quality of all. Now, let me bring everything together. You have learned 4 pillars: integrated darkness, cultivated stillness, earned authority, strategic vulnerability. But knowledge without application is worthless. Machiavelli warned that there is nothing more difficult than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. The new order I am asking you to create is internal, and internal change is the hardest change of all. Most men will watch this video and do nothing. They will nod along. They will agree with every point. Then they will close this tab and return to the same patterns that have made them invisible to women. I know this because I was that man. Let me tell you something I have not shared before. At 43, I was divorced, alone, confused about why my marriage had failed, confused about why women seemed to look right through me. I had money. I had status. I had everything society told me should make me attractive. But I had none of the 4 pillars. My darkness was unintegrated. I pretended to be only good, while my shadow leaked out in passive aggression and sudden anger. My stillness was non-existent. I fidgeted constantly. I filled every silence with nervous words. My energy screamed neediness even when my mouth said nothing. My authority was borrowed. I had a title at work, but no real competence in navigating life. I made decisions by committee. I avoided responsibility whenever possible. My vulnerability was either hidden completely or dumped inappropriately. I had no middle ground, no strategic revelation, just walls and floods. Women felt all of this. They could not name it, but they felt it, and they responded by keeping distance, by losing interest, by choosing other men who had something I lacked. It took me 4 years of deliberate work to develop these pillars, 4 years of facing my shadow in therapy, 4 years of practicing stillness through meditation, 4 years of building genuine competence in areas that mattered, 4 years of learning how to be real without being weak. I am not sharing this for sympathy. I am sharing it so you understand that transformation is possible, that where you are today is not where you must remain. Robert Greene wrote that the future belongs to those who learn more skills and combine them in creative ways. The skills I have taught you today are combinable. They build on each other. They create something greater than their sum. The man with all 4 pillars is not just attractive. He is magnetic. He does not chase because he does not need to. Women pursue him. They compete for his attention. They work to earn his interest. This is not fantasy. This is psychology. This is the natural result of becoming genuinely valuable rather than performing value you do not possess. But I must give you a warning. This path is not easy, and there are no shortcuts. I have watched men try to fake these pillars. They memorize stillness techniques without doing the internal work. They perform authority without building competence. They manufacture vulnerability moments without genuine self-knowledge. Women see through this instantly, perhaps not consciously, but their bodies know. Their instincts know. Something feels wrong even when everything looks right. Machiavelli wrote that men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. This is true in politics and business, but it is not true in attraction. Women have evolved over millions of years to detect deception in men. Their survival depended on it. Their children's survival depended on it. They have biological lie detectors that function below conscious awareness. You cannot trick your way to genuine attraction. You can only build your way there. Carl Jung warned that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This terror is why most men never do the work. It is easier to buy a new watch than to face your shadow. It is easier to learn pickup lines than to cultivate real stillness. It is easier to demand authority than to earn it. It is easier to hide than to reveal yourself strategically. The path of least resistance leads to invisibility. The path of most resistance leads to magnetic presence. Choose your path with full awareness of where each one ends. Nietzsche wrote about the eternal recurrence, the idea that you might have to live your life over and over, exactly as it is, for eternity. He used this as a test. If you would dread the eternal recurrence of your current life, you must change it. Would you want to live your current patterns with women forever? Would you want to repeat this same invisibility, this same frustration, this same confusion for eternity? If the answer is no, then change is not optional. It is necessary. So where do you begin? Start with the first pillar, integrated darkness. This week, sit in silence for 30 minutes. No phone, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. Notice what arises. The fears you avoid, the shames you hide, the impulses you pretend do not exist. Write them down, not to share with anyone, just to acknowledge to yourself. This is the beginning of integration, seeing yourself clearly without flinching. Next week, practice stillness. In every conversation, pause before responding. Feel the urge to fill silence and resist it. Move slower. Speak slower. Watch how others respond to this new energy. The week after, identify one area where you will build genuine competence, something that matters to you, something you can develop over months and years. Begin the work that earns real authority. Finally, find one truth about yourself that you have hidden, one failure that taught you something. Practice sharing it without drowning, without seeking sympathy, without losing your frame. These are small steps, but small steps accumulated become transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. The habits you build in the coming months will determine whether you remain invisible or become magnetic. The choice is yours. It has always been yours. I think about the 62-year-old man I watched at the beginning of this journey. The one who left with a woman half his age, despite having no wealth, no status symbols, no conventional advantages. He was not born with the 4 pillars. He built them. Through years of intentional development, through facing what most men avoid, through becoming real in a world of performance. You can build them too. Starting today. Starting now. The shadow mind exists for men willing to do this work. Every video here is designed to take you deeper into understanding yourself and others. Not through tricks, through truth. Not through performance, through genuine transformation. If this video has shifted something in your thinking, subscribe. Join a community of men who refuse to remain invisible, who are doing the hard work that most men avoid. Leave a comment below. Tell me which pillar resonates most with you. Tell me where you are in your own journey. Your honesty might help another man begin his. And remember this truth that Machiavelli understood 5 centuries ago. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Stop perfecting appearances. Start building reality. Because the only type of older man women truly want is the one who became something worth wanting. Not through age, through evolution. Not through money, through mastery. Not through performance, through presence. Become that man. Not for women, for yourself. And watch everything change. I will see you in the next video.